Wordle was the most downloaded game in the App Store last month. VPNs are all the rage in Russia, and demand for a less popular news app is through the roof. That and more in this week's episode, so stay tuned. Welcome to a brand new episode of This Week in Apps. I'm Ariel from MathFigures, and here are 5 things you need to know from the world of mobile apps and games. This week, Reface, an app that shapeshifts faces using AI to look like celebrities, went viral after taking a stand to show the invasion into Ukraine, which is where the team behind the app is based. There's a behind-the-scenes article by The Verge I found pretty interesting. I'm going to link to it in the description below. The team compiled actual videos of local attacks, and this is where it gets interesting, pushed them to users of the app in Russia, who are unable to see independent news coverage, as well as users all over the world. They managed to not just get the word out to users, but also acquire a bunch of new users in the process. Downloads, which we estimate at around 40,000 on a normal day, nearly doubled to 75,000 on Thursday, and continue to rise into the weekend, peaking at more than 200,000 downloads on Sunday. In total, our estimates show that Reface added more than 1 million new downloads since last week. It's interesting to see how an app that's used for entertainment was able to create such awareness, essentially offering news. And this isn't something we see often, but in times like these, it's great to see how developers are leveraging what they have to bring change. And speaking of Russia, while most of the attention is focused on Ukraine right now, there's something else that's going on rather quietly that's also pretty important. The government of Russia, which is invading Ukraine, is also making it hard for its own citizens to access information and news about the event. You know that I don't talk politics, just stick to the data, so here's why I bring this up. As of right now, and for most of last week, VPN apps have risen to the top of both the App Store and Google Play in Russia. And in case you're not familiar, VPNs provide a secure tunnel to the internet through servers in other countries, and that allows those who use them to circumvent local limits in most cases. As of Tuesday, the most popular VPN apps in Russia saw downloads grow by 1,200%, 1,268 to be precise. According to our App Intelligence daily downloads, which average at around 10,000 on a normal day, in Russia across the App Store and Google Play, rose to more than 500,000 on Tuesday. Just on Tuesday. And speaking of App Intelligence, wouldn't you like to have the ability to see the scale of downloads and revenue for your competitors? We offer very accurate estimates at a very affordable price. I'll leave more details and a limited time discount in the description. Back to data. Since the invasion into Ukraine began, the top VPN apps, which mostly seem generic and have kind of the same name and almost the same icon, were downloaded more than 1.3 million times in Russia. I wouldn't call this unexpected, but much like the big firewall of China, I expect the ability of VPNs to even exist in Russia to end in the not-so-distant future. Let's see how long this will last. And since we're talking about news already, news is obviously hot right now, and I already showed that it's channels and not aggregators that are in demand last week. And that was using ranks. This week, I have numbers to back it up and show which news channels are most in demand right now. And the one that's most in demand is not exactly one I was expecting. Well, kind of. I compared the downloads of the most popular news apps before and after the invasion began to see which grew the most. And for the most part, I'm focused on apps that are used only for news. So I didn't include Twitter or Reddit. They're great sources for news. And if you recall from last week's analysis, both have increased in popularity a lot recently. But news isn't the only use for them, so they can see spikes in downloads for other reasons. And that's why they don't belong in this one. Onto the numbers. In relative terms, Al Jazeera saw the most growth in downloads, going from about 5,000 estimated weekly downloads earlier in February to more than 160,000 last week. That's an increase of nearly 3,000%. In absolute terms, it was CNN that was the most in-demand news app last week, adding 270,000 new downloads last week alone, according to our estimates. CNN gets more downloads normally, so in terms of growth, it's only 493%. Newsmax, Fox News, and BBC News also grew triple-digit percentages last week. But aggregators Newsbreak and Google News both lost downloads. Newsbreak dropped by 6% and Google News by 13%. We estimate that last week brought roughly 580,000 new downloads, meaning downloads in addition to what we already expected in that space, to the top news apps around the world. Shifting out of current events, I am early again this week with our monthly analysis of the most downloaded apps and games in the world for February. Starting with apps. If you have been following the channel for a while, you know these don't change all that much from month to month, and February wasn't much different. TikTok was the most downloaded app in the world in February. It brought in 41 million downloads according to our estimates, showing a strong front in the App Store while letting rival Instagram beat it on Google Play. This is fairly normal. And Instagram was the second most downloaded app in the world with 39 million estimated downloads. I can continue and point out the usual suspects, but I have to stop and point your attention to Microsoft Word. What's it doing there? Word snuck into the top list again, but this time it made it into the overall list and not just the Google Play side, which it did last month. It added 18 million downloads in February, eclipsing CapCut, TikTok's video editor, which seems to always find a way to come in last in this list. Meta's Trio, Zoom, Telegram, and Snapchat were the other most downloaded apps in the world in February, and if you compare this list to last month's, you will see the only thing that's changed is Spotify for Word, and also Snapchat and Telegram swapped. I think it's time for something new. Are you working on it? According to our estimates, the top 10 most downloaded apps in the world added 265 million new downloads in February. That's a lot lower than January, but February is a short month, so this isn't really a surprise. And by the way, I'm going to do a much deeper dive into these lists in a video that's going to come out in just a few days. So subscribe to the channel and click the little notifications bell to make sure you get to see it. Apps down, let's look at games. I've analyzed the most downloaded games in February this week, and hey, it's Wordle up top. Kind of. Subway Surfers was the most downloaded game in the world in February, adding 20 million new users to its massive user base, according to our estimates. Roblox, which was the second most downloaded game in January, finished February in 5th place, with 12 million estimated downloads. Two hyper-casual titles, Merge Master and Twerk Race, and I don't make these names, I just look at the data. Those two took the 2nd and 3rd place in our overall charts with strong downloads on Google Play. We estimate they added 19 million and 15 million new downloads respectively. Garena Free Fire, which was banned in India in February, and sibling Free Fire Max both made the top list in February. They added 11 million and 10 million estimated downloads respectively. While lower than January, this isn't as bad as I expected after the loss of India. Together, we estimate that the top 10 most downloaded games in the world made their way into 132 million new devices in February. Only a touch lower than January's total, but then again, February is a short month, so this is good news. I'm going to dive deeper into these lists in a separate video that's going to come out in a few days as well, so make sure to subscribe to the channel to get it. And that's all I have for you this week. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and if you like this video, consider subscribing. I publish a new one every week, so see you next week. Oh, and if you're curious to see how many times apps and games were rated across the App Store and Google Play, check out this video. We're talking about a lot of ratings.